The Washington Baptist Theological Seminary is approaching its centennial celebration. We are extremely proud as we exhibit our rich history of training preachers, teachers, and educators who continue to serve the District of Columbia and people everywhere. They continue to serve with excellence, excitement, and enthusiasm, embracing the needs of everyday people and serving and empowering the masses everywhere to help make the world a better place.
Deaconess Jones, thank you so much for joining us today. You are the author of 7 books. You are the organizer of Imparting Grace Ministries, and you are also a facilitator at the Washington Baptist Seminary School of Certification and the Deaconess Training Program. So before we get into questions about your books and your ministry, I want to know a little bit more about you, about your experience and your call to ministry, your call to service of women and young women. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Dr. Caldwell, I think mine came from an ominous place in my life where things weren't going well for me, and it was in a dark place that I sought Christ. And so in seeking him, I found that it had to be something greater that God had for me to do. And it actually happened on a bus ride when we were going to Texas on the school bus, and I said to my pastor that every class that was there was nothing for Deaconess. And I said, I'm going to go back and write a book. And he said, yeah, girl, you ought to do that. And writing a book wasn't anywhere on my mind. I was just, saying something. So out of that began a writing that took me to another level in my life. I never thought or dreamed that I would get to a place where Fran Jones would be the writer of any books. But as I embarked upon the work of the Deaconess, I found that it was something that was so much needed in my life first, and then in the church. I began to talk to other women. I began to see how other women women were hurting, and I knew that because of what I had gone through, it was something that I could do to help. And so I started, as I was asked at my church to be a deaconess, and the only thing that was told as far as deaconess training was that you just watch me. And so I knew it had to be more to that. I saw where other women were going through different things in their lives. They were having breakups in marriages. They were having all types of things, children out of wedlock. And so I felt that it was something that I could do. And because I had been in all those places, a broken marriage, a child out of wedlock, I knew there was something that I could do to help. And so it took me down this long journey of being a deaconess. Making of a Deaconess was actually my first book. And I realized from that the deaconess are so much not born, but they are made. And they are made through the trials and tribulations that they've gone through in their lives. And I think God allows us to do that so that we'll be a help to somebody else. So that's how this journey started for me, out of my own pain and things that I had gone through.
Oh, man, thank you so much for sharing. The book that I have in front of me, Deaconess Going Beyond the Communion Table, you talked about your first book, The Making of a Deaconess. Could you share a little bit about what you experienced after writing that first book led you to this next book in your series?
The Deaconess Beyond the Communion Table, I felt that we as Deaconess needed to move from ceremony to service. We were more ceremonial deaconess, where we knew how to serve the elements on first Sunday. We knew how to get them ready and have the pristine looking tablecloths over it, lighting the candles, doing all those things, but we had no service. And we were not doing the things that God had called us to do as far as helping women. So we embarked in a women's ministry for young girls. And we began to work with the age group of 12, I think, to 16 was our first group.
Okay.
And with those young ladies, we found out that there was a greater need. So out of that greater need, we were able to launch another women's ministry that we now have in our church. So I think it was very important for us to look beyond the communion table and see what it is that we can do to help women in the church. We cannot sit back and wait for pastors to be the person who would be to help young women.
Sure.
Women need touch from women. And so if you're going to leave all that on the burden of a pastor to do, especially male pastors, you put them in a very compromising position, having them to deal with the young women or with the trials, the things, the hugs and all those things that women need. You leave that burden on a pastor, you put him in a compromising position. So I found that our moving from the level that we were as deaconess to another level was very necessary.
Amen. You talked a lot about your service, and having said that, a lot of times the perception of deaconess, kind of what you do, is that you don't do.
Yes.
So I would like for you to talk a little bit more about how you combat the negative perceptions of the deaconess within our churches, the things that persons say you don't do, but you shared a whole lot today. So talk a little bit about those perceptions and how you combat those negative perceptions about deaconess.
I think those stigmas came from deaconess of old, where they were very strategic in what they did. They took care of the church as best they could. They took care of the pastor as best they could, but there was no training. And until you train a person to do a job, they're going to do what they feel is right to do. So I think the stigma came from just not knowing, but really feeling that they were about a good work, which they were. And so they began to do it in a manner that they thought was the right way to do it. But as you dig into Titus 2 and find out what we as Titus 2 women are supposed to do, it helps you, it gives you a platform in which you can use to walk further into this ministry and do the work that God has called us to do. And so the stigma we're trying to remove day by day. We do a lot of work.
Yes.
But it's not so much recognized, because some people still say, and we'll still say that deaconess don't do anything. I employ them to get on board.
Amen.
See what we do.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that unseen work. When persons die within the church community, or someone is sick, or an elderly person needs support with a doctor's appointment. Talk a little bit more about that level of support that the deaconess ministry provides on a daily basis.
Yes, absolutely. We do a lot of unseen work. Things that we do, we can't get up on Sunday mornings and say that we did this with this person, or that. We don't have a platform for that. So what we do is we move quietly through the congregation, and we find the need, whatever it is, we can meet it. Like you said, if it's a hospital visit, to sit with a loved one while the other person is in surgery, or whatever it is that we can do to help. We have gone from cleaning houses to people who are not able to do for themselves. We've done work like that. We've done work in homes where children are going astray, and they want you to come in and talk to the child. You can't go back and tell everybody what you were doing. So it's sort of like an unseen work, and a work that you move quietly in. If you're looking for recognition in what you do, the deaconess ministry is not for you. Because it's not one where you're going to be patted on the back for everything that you do. And just think, even the very people that you help will turn on you. So you have to know that what you're doing for the Lord.
Amen.
And that's where you're going to get your reward.
Amen. Amen. I heard you say, without saying, you all are secret keepers. You keep the secrets of the congregation. So we thank God for you for that. Talk a little bit about how your partnership with the Washington Baptist Theological Seminary has empowered you to advance your ministry and advance the work of the deaconess.
Wow. This school, the Washington Baptist Theological Seminary, is one that is so unique because it allows laypersons. No other school that I know will allow laypersons to come in and get the training to go back to their churches and do the work. When you find the deacons that come in, the deaconess that come in and leave out and are better, workers for their church than they were, learning what it is to be a deacon or learning what it is to be a deaconess. No other school does that. And so I am just so excited about it because not only did it allow me to be a facilitator at the school, I am now a student at the school. And I've graduated from the school, so I am still a student at the school.
Yes.
And so I'm just so happy about this school. I think that the vision for it has been one that it's before its time, it seems, because there's all the other higher learning schools never thought about teaching the persons who do the work. The lay persons who are in the churches doing the work, they had nowhere else for them to go to train. So with that in mind, they do what they were told to do, or they do what the person before them did.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing that. At the beginning of our conversation, you said, I, Fran Jones. So tell me, who is Fran Jones as we wrap this conversation up and you look towards new endeavors in Deaconess ministry? Who is Fran Jones and what's next for Fran Jones?
What's next for Fran Jones is that I'm in the process now of penning another book. I'm working on the communion table book as it is, as a revision. So many new things have happened and embarked upon the church as it is now. So we need to move forward in making sure that we're on top of that. So that's one of the things. Who Fran Jones is just a servant of God who is trying to do the best that she can in ministry. I want it to be that if I left and I was no longer here, that I would want it to be known that Fran Jones taught me how to be the best deaconess that I can be.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your passion for women and for the Deaconess ministry. And I wish you the best in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell.